What's up, guys? Tim Austin with DragBoss Garage. Welcome to the channel. It's a live chat with Matt Bieneman from MBE, Cylinder Heads and Intakes. Guys, this is going to be epic. There's no doubt about that. I want to give a big shout out to my family, Andrea, Izzy, and Elena, for allowing me to have the time to do this, and also to Matt for taking time away from his family. This guy works 75 plus hours a week. So this is his free time, this time on Saturdays. And I thank you, Matt, for taking the time to spend with me and my subscribers to teach us about cylinder heads and intakes. So thank you for that, my friend. I'm honored to have you here.
Well, I'm honored to be invited with some of the guests you have. I'm certainly honored by that, for sure. Thank you very much.
I'm flattered by that.
Choosing me is, yeah, that's really nice. A little surprised, but very nice.
Thank you, my friend. And I want to give a big shout out too to Jimmy Biggs. You know, probably I don't know how many people know him or heard of him, but he's the guy that started Yellow Bullet. And that's a huge forum back in the day when we didn't have internet like this. We didn't have social media. We didn't have YouTube. We had message boards. And for us to communicate, we typed, what do you think about this valve size for this cylinder head? And people would type back the answer. And trying to get media up there and pictures, it was an art in itself to place these things. So now, with the advent of video and being able to do interviews, we're right there with Matt. And that's something that you just are not going to see anywhere. And it's growing. That's the trend right now for development, presentation. Now, one of the things I wanted to ask you, when I see all the work that you've done, you had to get this from your dad. Was your dad a porter, head porter?
No, I grew up in Detroit area, so
Motor City.
So, the people my dad were friends with were people like Sam Giannino, Maskins,
Wow.
Dick Aarons.
Yes.
Regis from Trick Titanium. I mean, so when I was a young kid, I would go in all those shops. So I was very fortunate. I remember I went into Booth Aarons. I think it was around 1975, probably. I was about 5 or 6 years old. And they had a cast iron cylinder head there, and they had cut them, and they had cut it in two, and they were brazing them together.
Right.
Biggs, what's that noise in the background?
It's not on my side. It could be my
It's
furnace.
on his side. I don't know what he's doing. It's terrible, though.
I don't hear it here. I don't think anybody hears it here on this side.
Okay. Well, anyways, so they were actually they take two cylinder heads, then braze them together to make one cylinder head. And
on top of each other to raise the ports, correct?
I'm not sure. I think they had two good ports and two bad ports, and they made one. They took the two heads and made one big one. What's all that noise? I don't know. It's absolutely terrible. And I don't know. I was fascinated by that even at 6 years old, and I go, I think that's what I want to do when I get older. So so I was fortunate enough that from there, my dad owned a transmission shop. My dad raced Top Fuel. He did all of these things. We had Sam Giannino in town. His shop was about a mile away. He raced NHRA Pro Stock. He was engine builder, modified, very, very successful in modified, things like that.
Okay.
I stopped working for my dad when I was 18, went to work at Sam's for 5 years. Sam took a chance on me, and I was just still forever grateful for it, because the things he had me doing when I was a young kid were, I don't know. I just can't believe he let me do some of these things. So the machine work and everything that he taught me, making sure that the shop was clean. It never costs any money to keep things clean. It doesn't cost anything extra to keep things clean. So there's really no reason why stuff should not be clean. If it's not clean, you're just lazy, and then you're sloppy, and then your work's not as good. So he certainly instilled all that in me. And my dad did that too. My dad kept a clean shop, and the garage where the fuel car was always clean. And, we kept all that real nice. But I was very, very fortunate at a very young age, to be around all these people. I always feel like it gave me like a 15-year head start. I always feel that way because I think it did. You're around those people. You just don't speak and you watch. You can learn a lot from watching.
Man, that is amazing. just to see that history. I mean, I'm in 75, I was 10, so I was only a few years older than you. And I was just starting to watch Pro Stock. Sometimes if we're lucky, we get to watch it on TV, ABC Wide World of Sports. I've said this often because we had 3 channels and a black and white TV. You know, I can remember seeing Glidden on TV, watching these races, you know, and win. And I think that's maybe that's why I'm a Ford guy. I don't know, you know, but I kind of went down that Cleveland road and had talked to you about this before. And, you know, it's not about brand. It's not about Ford or Chevy or Oldsmobile. You know, when you're talking cylinder heads and intakes, it's about airflow. It's about port shape. It doesn't care what block it's on or what the crankshaft is. Now, it may affect the way the piston goes up and down and what it's going to draw on, but I'm not into the, I like the brand. I'm a Ford guy. That's what I like, but I like everything, every engine. I don't care if it's a lawnmower. I'm surprised you didn't port lawnmower heads or something like that when you were a kid, or a mini bike or something, you know?
No, I did put more compression in the snowblower, though. I did do that. I remember I did do that. My grandpa had this big, heavy, old steel thing, and I took the head off, and I took some compression. I put some compression in it. I don't think it did anything, but I didn't know any different. I was like 13, so.
Nice. And let me just throw this up here because we were talking about this earlier. And yet again, Tim, you amaze your ability to get some of the greatest people in the industry. Is simply amazing. Thank you to you and your guests. And that means a lot to me, Matt. It really does. You know why more than I can explain to anybody on this. So I think
we just need to give them content, right? So
that's it.
That's the most important thing. We just need to give them content, and you know, that's all.
And let them learn. Here's one of the things I think about. Nowadays, everybody, it's about flow numbers. Oh, what's that head? Oh, that thing makes 380 at 900. Okay. They throw out all these numbers, you know, and people live by numbers and statistics. In reality, it really doesn't make any difference to you sometimes. I never see you talk about flow numbers. I don't even think I've seen a flow bench in your videos. So
we use it for sure. We definitely use it.
I would think so, no doubt. But it isn't really about that number. Don't you think it's about port shape and valve location and velocity? That's what makes the difference. That's what gives you a number.
When we started a project, we looked at, you know, first thing we want to know is what the application is. Is it drag race? Is it dirt racing? Because if the cubic inch is the same, they're still two completely different cylinder heads. I mean, they don't even look alike as far as the port sizes. They're significantly smaller on the dirt side. It's not about making a big number. It's about making something that's drivable. You know, about not getting passed on restarts. I would say that's probably one of the most important things to them. So we have to design things a lot differently. But so we look at cubic inch and RPM, and application would be the 3 main things. And then we look at the architecture of the cylinder head. So we look at, okay, so what valve angle can we get in the casting where we don't get into the water core, you know, because we're still, you know, they still have to have water in them. So to keep cool. So we look at that. We look at the port height, you know, the port height versus valve angle, things like that. And then from there, we know what the cross-sectional areas are going to be before we even start. We've done all that math. What has helped us here is, so I did all the port development on my own up till probably 2008-ish.
Okay.
And then Bob's been with us now about, I don't know, 12, 14 years.
Yeah. And
Bob brought a lot to here. He definitely improved us. We were doing really good. We were doing great, but another set of eyes, and he looks at things a little bit differently than I do, which is great. So now for the last 14 years, we've done all these projects together. So he gets a lot, he deserves a lot of the credit. And we enjoy doing it. We challenge ourselves. Nobody gets upset. Nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. We just keep moving, keep moving.
Yep.
And now we have Ian with us, and he's involved in that too. And yeah, he's going to be one of the good ones, you know, for sure. So now we have 3 of us doing that, and we're able to question each other. And when we can question each other, we can get better very quickly.
Okay.
So the reason why I think where we can shine, where we help, what some of the reason we're successful is because we understand what those cross-sectional areas need to be for the application. So knowing that math, because we've done so many different things, we've won championships in World of Outlaws, we won championships in Top Fuel, Funny Car, NASCAR, Cup, Busch, Truck, all that stuff. We've been very fortunate to be around great engine builders and teams and be successful. But that helps us. Truck pulling, truck pulling is huge. We love truck pulling. Actually, it's one of my favorites.
Is it really?
Performance based. There's no spec in truck pulling. It's still performance based. So hopefully they don't screw that up like most of the other sanctioning bodies have. But
yeah.
So that's all that stuff evolves is from that.
So when you say like drag racing cylinder head different from a circle track, it's because when you come off flat off that throttle, come around that corner to hit it again, you need that to pick up. You need that power band in X amount of area of RPM compared to where you need in a drag racing engine. Am I right?
Yeah, you can't make powers on both ends of the curves. You just got to decide where you want it. Do you want it up high or do you want it in the middle? You don't get both. That doesn't exist. Okay. You can't do that. If you're, you can make something that's more efficient, but you don't get both. So what happens is you take a dirt engine, instead of making, let's say, 1,040, like a drag race engine is going to make, It's going to make 930 in a dirt motor.
Okay.
But at 4,000 RPM, it's going to be drivable. Where the drag race motor, if you did that same thing, they're going to go down the straightaway, and all of a sudden, it's just going to go. The engine's going to all of a sudden just take off, and then it makes it not drivable, and things like that. And those are the things that those drivers complain about, and rightfully so, because they know they know better than anybody what it takes to be fast on the track. You got to listen to the driver.
Okay.
So,
do you do mostly NA applications? Are you into power added turbos, blowers, that kind of stuff? Do you design stuff like that too?
So, of course, the beginning, all my education was around NA stuff. When I worked for Sam's, I did all of that. And then the first two employees of DART were Steve Sanchez and Jim Becker. Well, Jim Becker went to Coletta's. I had left Sam's, went to go work for Tim Richards, and then went to Coletta's, and I got hired by Jim, who was at DART for all those years. Jim went to Coletta's to run the machine shop, and I was fortunate enough that he brought me in, took me under his wing again. So I have another person that takes me under his wing and teaches me and throws me into the fire and trusts me and things like that. And certainly those people weren't hard to, I was always told that Sam is so hard to work for. I was always told that Jim is so hard to work for. And I was told that LaHaye was hard to work for. They weren't hard to work for. They just expected everything out of you. And there was no bullshit. And it was great. Right. I thrive in that. I do great in that. I love that. I like directness. Even if I don't like the answer, I still like it. We can move on and go on. But that's so those people have helped me with all of that also.
And I can kind of correlate that to medicine. I told you I work in an emergency room, and they call me the grumpy PA. I'm a physician assistant. They call me the grumpy PA. It's not because I'm mean or nasty. I don't tolerate BS. When you're dealing with people's lives, I want stuff done like this. When I ask a nurse to get something done, I want it done. I want that ID in there now, or 2 IDs. I don't want to be waiting around. I don't want to see people on their phones. And I know there's guys probably from work watching this, but play with your phone when you got caught up with your work. Not when there's stuff that's got to take care. And it's no different from patient care than to cylinder head development or work that's got to be done. And I can understand that. My dad was the same way. He was a hard man to deal with growing up because he only told you to do something one time. There was not a second time. And after you realize that there's not a second time, you get it done the first time and the right way.
To listen. and be present.
Thank
for
you.
Sure.
And if my kids are watching this, that's one of the most important things is to listen. You can't learn without listening, and people sometimes need to get that concept. Just like you're not talking when I am, and sometimes we interrupt each other because I'm excited and this is great, but you have to let that person talk. You have to bring that knowledge in or what they want you to understand, and you can't do it when your mouth's open. So I think that's a great important factor. One of the things go ahead.
I was just going to mention you're talking about that directness stuff. When I worked for Coletta's, we had a wonderful group there. We had all these crew guys that went on to win championships. Dickie Venables, you had Nicky Bonifani, you had Todd Smith, we had Jim Oberhofer, we had John Oberhofer, we had just John Stewart. We had just all these wonderful like people, and I know I'm missing probably like 3 or 4 that were just amazing. And I was one of the youngest ones, but they used to call me Little Hitler, so I guess I was a little coarse, I think. But they all seem to love me, so I think we're all right there. I wanted the best for the team. I just wanted to win, and so that was all. That was it.
Now that's Scott Coletta you're talking about?
Yeah, it was Scott and Doug and Connie. Connie was still driving when I went there. Yep.
Okay. What's he like as a person? I never.
Ace McCullough was there. We had Ace was there too, and he's an incredible mentor. Also, he's quite a big mentor to a lot of us. Yeah, he's a pretty amazing man for sure. I think a lot of us.
How about Connie? I never saw
Connie Connie is the best person I've ever worked for.
Really?
Yes. Things I love about Connie is he'll never call you by your name until he respects you. He will say, "Hey, you," and you can work there 10 years and he'll still call you. He'll just go, "Hey, you." So when he calls you by your name, it means a lot when first time it happens. Nice. Connie was easy to work for. Connie gets a bad rap. He is one of the most generous people in all of the industry. He has done things that nobody even know about because he doesn't brag about it. He doesn't look for it. He has done some amazing things. And the people around him know that. That's why he doesn't have a lot of turnover over there over the years, because he's a great man. And hey, I've worked for Joe Gibbs. I've worked for Sam. I've worked at these places, but Connie's my favorite boss for sure. I loved working for Connie.
Really? Nice to hear that.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's the kind of guy, when I look at it, he's kind of like a Roush in the fact that they don't just have racing. I mean, he has got air shipping. He's got whatever things he has, like Roush has engine building and a bunch of other businesses. It's not just about racing. They expand like that. And it's amazing. I think he was a pilot too, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. He was a pilot. Yeah, he flew us to the races. I was really lucky. I got to go to the races, get on the Lear, and I'd be home Sunday night to come home and watch the races. So that was nice. So I'd be home by then. But Connie he's the best.
It's good to hear that. Thank you. One of the points I think people get confused on with cylinder heads is, is that a 12 degree? Is that a 18 degree? Is that 10 degree? 9 degree? When you talk about degrees, we're talking about a 90 degree V8 like this. What's the relationship? What does that degree mean? Is that the intake valve degree? What does that mean? Can you explain that?
So move this right here, please.
Ooh, aluminum is my favorite metal.
It's the relationship from the deck to the valve angle. So this is 9 degrees to the deck. Okay.
Got it. Yep.
Okay. And then you have cant, and cant is when the valve opens towards the middle of the cylinder.
Sure. Like a Cleveland.
9 is 9 by 4.
Okay.
We like 4 a lot. There's some people who, Carl Fultz has done some 8 stuff back in the day. Cant at 8 degrees. Made a big move, and I respect all of that. He did his thing, but yeah, so that's what that is.
Okay. And I think that's a good concept for people to understand ahead of time. Now here's someone you may know. I got to put I'll put this up. You may recognize this guy.
Yeah, for sure.
Klita Air is flying arms and food to Ukraine as we speak. There you go.
Yeah. For us on 9/11, that his planes were the only ones flying at the time when they shut everything down. That his were the only ones flying. He did a lot of government work. He's got a picture in his office. It's a huge picture with George Bush Sr. It's pretty cool. Connie, he never talks about himself. He just leads by example.
That's a humble person. He's humble. There's no doubt about that from hearing that.
Yeah, sure.
So when we talk about those degrees, talk about this. Does change of the valve rotating that valve and that cylinder head, how does that affect RPM band? Does it affect it?
I want to go back to the valve degrees, because I think what's happening is because not everybody is knowledgeable about it. They think as a lot of people think, well, a 10 is going to be better than a 13, so I got to have the 10. That is not true. There's absolutely no truth to that. And that's certainly an issue that we have to explain when I talk to people on the phone. I go, no, your application, the 13 is going to be better than the 10. That's why you need to use that. And typically it's less money too. So it's like, here, just do this. But, that is, that is an issue right now because, we've made moves towards flatter and flatter valve angles, but flatter is not always better. If you look at a conventional big block Chevy head, it has no port height in it. It's terrible. It's designed in the 60s. So it just hasn't evolved. Well, it's evolved into big chief heads and pro stock and all of that. But because of the port height, to us, we don't want to go 18 is the max at that port height. People come out with 16s and things like that. But what happens is the air, if you're looking at the deck side up right here,
sure.
What happens is, so let's say we're at this angle here to the deck on an 18. Well, all of a sudden we go 16. What happens is now the air has to turn almost 90 degrees. The air doesn't want to turn 90 degrees. So, you have to look at everything. It's not just one thing. And that's why we've never been a fan of going any further than 18. 18 was the max on that when we did that. And we have a 20 version now for the people that made our head illegal. So we have a 20 now. So hopefully they won't make that one illegal.
And back in the day, like 07, when you were doing this, you actually were trying to compensate for the asymmetrical ports of a big block Chevy with intakes and heads, correct?
Yeah, I think that was 2003. Dart had just come out with their 18 then. And I think we were one of the first ones to get the castings. My dad was working there and stuff like that. So that was, it was an advantage, right?
Yeah.
I think I was the first one to get them. So we worked on them. It's the hardest port program I ever did because that bad port is designed so horrifically. It's terrible. It pushes all the air towards the cylinder wall. But I learned a lot because I had a couple hundred hours in that thing trying to make it decent. But we learned a lot. I learned a lot of conventional stuff, and that's why our conventional stuff shines now is those first couple hundred hours doing that 18. But yes, the biggest thing that happens is we always want the air attached to what we call the common wall. The common wall is a low pressure wall. So the air goes to the path of least resistance. So you want to keep it attached to the wall that is closest to the center of the cylinder. That's the low pressure area. What happens in those conventional heads is that it doesn't stay attached to that wall. It goes to the other wall, which makes it extremely inefficient. The 18, when we designed the new 18, the MBE 18, we were able to get that air to switch and go over to the common wall. The effect of that was the same valve area in mid-lifts picked up 40 CFM. It was significant.
Wow. That's a lot.
It's all basics. You can clean the cylinder head and you can blow air through it. You can put water through it and with the hose, and you can see where that air is going. Water does the same thing as air. And if you have anybody that cleans a conventional set of cylinder heads, blow the hose through it. It'll all go to the unconventional wall on the bad port. But the 18 doesn't do that, and that's why it's been successful.
Now, when we talk air, we're not just talking air. We're talking air fuel. There's molecules of fuel in there. That's what we want to get to that port, right, into the combustion chamber. So when it moves like that, do they fall out of suspension when they're going back from side to side?
Well, conventional has some things that are just wrong. They typically have way too much taper rate, meaning that it gets way too big at the flange and not big enough over the short turn.
Okay.
That's certainly the biggest knock. And the problem with a conventional head, if you go from a 360 to a 380 cc's, the combustion over the port volume, the only place you can make it big is not over the short turn. You have to make it big at the flange. So every time you make it big at the flange, it gets more and more just inefficient. Got to put more jet in it because it's not pulling fuel and things like that. And there's plenty of people out there that understand this because they went from a 340 or 380 and made the same power. And that's why, because you're actually making it worse. We don't believe in large taper rates. We think that that keeps airspeed up, keeps the pull. And if you look at that 18, hardly there's any taper rate at all. Where the other ones probably It's probably like 800,000 difference from let's say a BB3, like a Brodex BB3 or something like that.
Now, when I watch your videos, one of my favorite things is see those big blocks of aluminum sitting there on your shelves. You know, they're nice square pieces that are cylinder head, that are going to be a cylinder head. Now, those are all CNC billet. Before all that, before CNC became big, which I can't really give you a year, you'd know better than I would. You're getting castings from who? Brodex? Are you having your own things poured? Where do the castings come from?
We are like, we're so fortunate. So we have a really good relationship with the Brothertons at Brodex. We work on projects for them. They help us. This is our 15th year doing that. So we're very, very fortunate. John at CID
Yep.
is another one. And it's great because now what we try and do is we try to help them with castings where it's better for all the cylinder head porters. Like, who cares? We'll do our thing. We'll rely on ourselves. We don't have to worry about if this guy's getting it or that guy's getting it. I'm not even worried about that. For those relationships to work, they have to make money also. So those do work. So that's why we always give them props, because they're making it happen. I can't make castings and things like that. I don't know anything about that industry, really.
Okay.
So yeah. So I guess that answers it or not.
It does. I got a good grasp on that. When you started, you didn't have any CNC machines. You're doing this by hand.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I remember doing stuff I remember in Michigan doing out in the driveway because the top fuel car's in the garage, so I couldn't do it there. So I, just for side money, just work out there and sweat and do all that, have the cast iron all over you and things like that. But for sure. When we first started the business, though, our heads were being CNC machined. We did a lot of hand work, of course. We had a place called Clements in South Carolina. They're one of the largest super late model engine builders in the country. Glenn Clements, he machined our stuff for probably 5 years, a long time. I believe we're his biggest customer there. And I needed him, and he helped us because he would do things. He would move valve angles and stuff like that. And I'd go over there at midnight because he'd work. He was a workaholic, and I'd travel 2 hours to Spartanburg and hang out with him for 2 hours till like midnight, 1 o'clock, get home at 2:30 and then get up and go to work. But he was willing to do all of that. And that that's just another person that has driven the business forward. And, I'm very grateful to all these people. And still have great relationships with all of them.
It's things like that get you where you need to be, the help from other people. Like you're helping me, you're helping my subscribers learn about stuff like this. And you can't buy knowledge like that. You can't read it in a book. It has to come from someone that's done it, who's been there. And you got to work.
You got to work.
Listen and work.
You have to enjoy it. I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. I'm very fortunate I get to do what I love. Yeah, I know that. And work with great people. We have just amazing people.
How many guys work there? I've seen maybe
we have 9 of us in the shop, and then we have a couple of people that do some contract labor for us in the design end of it. So we have a couple of them to try and keep up with the CAD. You can never keep up with the CAD. You're always a few years behind in the CAD and CAM. You just can't keep up because there's ideas, but getting the ideas to the CAD screen to the machine, it's a long time, and plus you have to keep running the business. So you can't just focus on that or you'll go broke. So you have to it's a fine line.
So what you're telling me is you're designing these ports through CAD, not necessarily taking a
no. We don't design them in CAD. Absolutely not.
So you do.
I think that's nonsense. I hear this bullshit that people say that. I think it's absolute nonsense. There's not good enough software out there to do that.
Got it.
I think the people that are saying that are not being honest. I have no problem saying that. I think it's good when you do them, when you design, as long as you know the areas and you know the rules. Cylinder head porting is no different than life in a way. If you stick to the basic rules, you can be successful. It's when you veer off that you get yourself in trouble. And I think there's 4 of us in the industry that understand what those rules are, and that's why we've been successful. and we stick to those rules first, and then, whatever we do at the port, those rules are in it. We don't stray off those rules. But yeah, that's all.
So you design a port or port one manual or by hand before it goes to any other CNC program or anything, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's very difficult to take let's just say to do a one direction, to take a drag race head like the 13-degree drag and then make that head into a sprint car, do that in the CAD. That's very difficult to do. The CAD doesn't take material out or leave material out where it needs to be. It's only as far as the information you give it, and make sure the radius is correct. If you look at a lot of our stuff, the radius on one side of the short turn is different than the other side of than the other. So the CAD can't do that. So I always call BS on that. I think that's just somebody trying to get a little bit extra work and fibbing to people.
So when I see this, it's like I'm trying to think of how to word this.
Oh, the intake manifolds we do design in the CAD though. The intake manifolds we do. So we do design those in the CAD. So that's a different representation, but it's a different beast also.
So when you look at the evolution of this, I'm trying to think of how to word this to make it so you can understand what I'm trying to say. Back in the day, and I'll use that just because it's a catchphrase and we all know it, which might be the early time when you coming around in the early 2000s to mid 2000s. We had X amount of head castings. We have maybe 5 different ones for the big block Chevy, and that casting is going to go on a drag motor, or it could go on a truck puller, or it could go on a circle track engine, whatever. That's what you had. Now, from what you're telling me, Matt, you're telling me that you're designing cylinder heads for each application. The ports and everything is for each application, not one size. We're going to make it fit this engine, that class. Am I right?
Correct. I won't sell it if we don't have that's what's right for the application. I won't sell it. So either we won't do it, or we'll make it, and that's kind of how the product line keeps grows. Is from looking at no, we need to do a new port for that, a new intake port. We need to do a new exhaust port for that, whatever it might be, and then it just adds to our library and improves things. But then we get a happy customer, and then he comes back.
But that's why they're number one. That's why they're winning titles, because that head is designed for that specific application and engine.
Well, when you deal with the better race teams, they're better at everything also. So they certainly make you accountable. They challenge you because they have high expectations too, because they're winners. I think when you go to like the drag races, I think you can walk by a pit area and figure out who the winners are and who aren't. You can just walk by the pit area and you can see it. It's to me, it's very obvious when I do that. But so
here's a question. Please elaborate on how important it is not to send your race heads to just anyone for a valve job, and how detrimental it is if someone messes up the angles or blending in the area.
Sure. So the advantage of coming to some place like this is that we do use the epochs, okay? The new epochs. We have a 30, but once you get an epoch, the 30 becomes a drill press. I don't badmouth it. That 30 made more money than anything in the shop. Sure. It bought all these machines in here. That 30 did. But what happens when you get one, you see the inefficiencies of a manual machine. It becomes very obvious. Even if a 23-degree set of small block Chevy comes in, we don't valve job on the 30, but we do everything on the epoch. It takes longer. It actually takes longer. It's not quicker, but it's better. One thing with the epoch, we can make the valve job in the CAD itself, so we can draw the whole valve job in it, the whole valve job. We can do this much of it. So it's so that way when the stuff comes in, when it's not our stuff, we can look at it and we can we can write the program for it. So when they get the stuff back, it's like the person that made it originally. But I don't mind. I just want it to be good for the person. So, and we do service a lot of engine builders, cylinder heads. That's a large part of what MBE does is repair, service, update. Make it so the engine builder has one less thing to worry about, and he can worry about building the engines, worrying about the customer, the vendors, all the parts and all of that. When he gets the cylinder heads, he has everything finished and he can just put them on. So it's like having an educated employee, that he doesn't have to have on the payroll. So that's what, but that I think that's real important.
Thank you. I'm a Cleveland guy. I've been racing Clevelands for 40 years. And I always, I have these comments that say, oh, that the Cleveland's a copy of the big block Chevy head, blah, blah, blah. The Pro Stock heads currently are not based on Cleveland port symmetry. What can you expound, or what can you tell us about the difference between a Cleveland head and a big block Chevy?
Well, I think everything is evolution, right? All that people like I am doing is improving something that somebody else has already done. Okay. I mean, let's be honest. There's been plenty of exceptional people, like a bunch of the ones you've had on your show. So everything is just an evolution of the one. So, the big block Ford came out after the big block Chevy. So hopefully they made a better, a better piece, right? So
right.
Some of the things better about the Ford is that, the lifters are spread more. So it allows you to do less, push rod angle is better. You can put bigger push rods in it. A lot of the Ford stuff is definitely better than the Chevrolet. But it's a Chevrolet world in a way, there's certainly more cylinder heads to sell to Chevrolet guys than there is Ford guys.
Okay.
But to us, it's just a cylinder head. It really doesn't make any difference, but they are not. They're completely different from each other. You can see where the intake ports come in compared. A Ford is going to be symmetrical, meaning they're going to be bore space apart from each other. So Ford's going to be 4,900. The next intake port's going to be 4,900. Next one's going to be 4,900. Whereas Chevy's not like that. Right. So they're a mirror image of themselves. So yeah, they are. There's nothing the same about them at all. You have to, when you design, you have to look at it completely different. You can't look at a big block Chevy when you're doing a Ford and expect that's going to help you with the design of it.
Okay, guys, you heard it from Matt right there. So they're not the same cylinder head, and it's not a copy. But the
only thing that's a copy is, I would say that GM finally got smart and they copied a small block Ford and made an LS. So I would say that's probably a copy. Thankfully, they did something. It just took them 50 years, but I'm glad they did it. So that's good news.
So it's a copy of the Cleveland head.
It's a Ford. To me, it's just a Ford. The lifter spacing's similar. The dowel pins are similar. Like everything's similar.
Valve angles. Close?
Well, the Ford has always been ahead on that. The Ford has always had flatter valve angles when they needed to be. So I think in a lot of applications, the Ford has had. It was just a better engine. So like in the truck pull world, they have to run A4, like the 500 cubic inch class. There's a 485 cubic inch class. Those guys run 10,000 RPM. They're insane. 10,000 RPM for 18 seconds. Wow. People need to go to some truck pulls. I'm telling you, they are awesome. They are awesome. They, nothing's harder on valve train than a truck pull. Really? But they have to run an A460 or they have to run a conventional big block Chevy head. So typically the Ford, for decades, would always make more power than the Chevy, and typically won most of the championships. Now with the 18, the 18 makes the Chevrolet guys competitive now to the Ford. I'd say the engines make very similar power to each other. The flow coefficients are similar. Cross-sectional areas are similar. The Ford still have some advantage in the cylinder head, but the Chevrolet has advantage in the intake manifold. So it kind of evens it all itself out. Okay. I don't know if I got in a tangent there or not, but
no. This is what it's like us sitting in my garage. This is what we're doing is bench racing. That's what I like about this. There's no one telling us what to do. There's no commercials. There's nothing. It's just me and you and all these people, the 66 people that are watching now. I figured there'd be 100 or more, but this is going to be on a replay. So I guarantee people are going to be watching this. Believe me.
That's all right.
Let's see that Greg. Let's see as you know, Tim, my first realization that cylinder heads are the key to unlocking performance was in 1974 with Dyno Don and some guy named John. Your content expanded under. Okay. I get it, Craig. Kazi's good. There's no doubt about it. He was just talking about it. And I called him yesterday. So stay tuned to that. Now here's another.
Yeah, that's another. That's a very humble person too. That guy is. I always think I want to be more like John Kazi. I think I'd be a better person. That guy's pretty amazing.
Thank you. I like how that that you're the same way as that Sam was, Gianni. Direct. That's how you got to be direct. No fluff. I'm telling you how it is, and this is how it is. Simple. Work and listen.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to make a decision. Even if it's the wrong one, at least make a decision and get moving.
That's it. Bill Fioretti. What's up, Bill? What is Matt's opinion of the overall Ford Cleveland cylinder head design versus the Chevy Rat motor? And you haven't had we talked about that, so we got that down. What do you think about the Boss 429, Matt? Any experience with that?
I don't think I have enough. I don't have enough knowledge of it to really comment on that. It just wouldn't be right.
Okay.
There's so many other people that are much smarter about that to make comments about it. I wasn't around that a lot, growing up. That's all.
Let's see. Hey, thank you, Greg. We appreciate it. It is incredible and unusual content. So thank you. And that's what I'm trying to do with my channel. It's not about just Fords and Clevelands. I found if you want to survive and you want to teach and you want people to learn, you got to encompass everything, whether it's a Ford or Chevy or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's about what we can learn from the person and incorporate into our own race program or what we're trying to do. It's a quest of knowledge.
Yeah, but you've had people like Darren Morgan on, you've had Warren Johnson on, and to them, it's just an engine because they just look at it. How can we make this better? They don't. I feel like I can guarantee that those two don't look at it like this is a Ford, this is a Chrysler, this is a Chevrolet. I would feel certain that they could really care less.
I talked to Warren the other day, and I'll tell you, he's a kind of he's probably like that Sam, a very kind of gruff guy when you first talked to him on the phone. I said who I was. I said, hey, this is Tim Hulse. He goes, yeah. I said, well, I'm calling you because so-and-so referred me to call you. Yeah. I'm like, okay. My mouth's getting dry. My hands are sweaty, just like it was when I was going to talk to you. And my hands are sweaty and my heart's racing because it pumps me up with enthusiasm, the stuff that I'm learning, and other people are going to learn from this. So I said to him, well, I have a YouTube channel called DragBoss Garage. He goes, yeah. I said, okay. Well, I was thinking about maybe having you on it. And he goes, stop there. And Warren, if you're watching this, it was great. He goes, I watch DragBoss Garage. I watch your videos. You come across as someone that wants to learn, and teach people. And that's one of the themes he's going to come on here. And this is what you're doing for us, is you're teaching us. You're putting that fire into someone that may be watching that's only 13 or 14 or 16 that says, look, I want to do that. I'd like to do this kind of stuff. Light that fire of enthusiasm. And that's what we were trying to do here. And I thank you for doing that, Matt. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I think parents need to realize that you can make a living in this industry. I remember when I was in high school, you go see the what do they call them? The person that tells you what you need to be doing. They go, you need to be an electrician.
Guidance counselor.
Yeah, and I go, what are you talking about? I'm doing this. I'm going this route. You can't make money doing that. And I'm like, I don't know. I look around. I see a lot of people making money at this. Like, I can survive, I think. I thought that was just so silly. Just have no clue. And I think it was awful because they weren't telling somebody to go what their passion was. And I thought that was just, I tell you, I thought it was absolute nonsense. I walked out of there and you're like, God, get me out of here. I want to go to work. But yeah, I think that's very dangerous. I think people can be very successful when they do the things that fulfill them. I think that's so important. I don't take on things here in the shop. If it doesn't fulfill me, I always feel like I'm going to do an injustice to the customer. I mean, we'll do a lot of different things, but if it doesn't interest, I don't know. I don't think it's fair. I think they can find somebody that does have interest.
Sure.
Person. So that's all.
Well, when I went to the guidance counselor, when I walked up the door, they put a sign on out to lunch and shut the door. I never went back. But I was a mechanic before all this. I said when I was in school, I never studied. I never did any of that stuff. I did good grades, but I didn't have to study. And I didn't care about that stuff because I'm going to be a mechanic. I started getting into cars and lawnmowers. And like you, I had that thirst and knowledge and wanted to do that. And that's what I did until I got into it and realized, look, this isn't what I want to do. I'm not making any money. My hands are getting beat up all the time. now fuel injection's coming out. I either got to go back to school for that, and ECMs, all the cars went into electronics, or pick something else. So I got an opportunity to go into medicine, and that's what I did. You find that niche that gives you that drive, and that's what kids have to find out. My own kid,
and you're fulfilled. I mean, you're helping people. So obviously you enjoy that. You know, I can imagine there's a lot of gratification that comes from that. It's very unselfish.
Just like you, same thing. You get these people that come in and say, look, man, I just won this championship. They must send you pictures or show you trophies and all. You get accolades from that kind of stuff.
It's nice. We had a really nice phone call yesterday from a gentleman named Chad Kirby, and he had run our 11-degree symmetricals in a small block, and
okay,
it energizes the whole shop. So he went to our package in a small block Chevy at 11-degree symmetrical, and he made the same power. He used to run 25 pounds of boost with this app with our combo. He made the same power at 10 pounds of boost, and so he was real excited. We were excited too. So yeah, it energizes the shop. We have to have a little bit of that. You know, it's kind of like golf. You know, you got to have at least one good shot to want to go back.
I've never played golf ever.
Well, don't start then.
Do you play golf?
I would. I don't know. I need to. I actually live on a golf course, so I should, but I don't play. I enjoy it. I just don't make time for it.
You don't have time right now. You know, it's like my dad.
It's not a priority for me right now. That's all.
My dad said to me, he goes, he said, don't worry about sleep. You'll get plenty of that when you're dead.
That's
so
right.
Just get back to work and get this stuff done, like I asked you to.
It's hard to justify 7 or 8 hours on the golf course and just wasting a whole day like that in my mind. I appreciate people that can do it, though.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like I need it a little bit sometimes, but yeah, I know that's how I feel about it. I think I'd have an anxiety attack get to the back nine. I'd have an anxiety attack. I think.
Maybe you just need the golf club to beat something with it, you know?
Oh, I don't want to do that. I'm too little to get in a fight with anybody. That's for sure. I don't need to be doing that.
I'm too old. Harry T. Garland III, truly a learning experience. Thank you. I think the same, Harry. All the little bits and pieces that we're getting, it's great. So thank you. Are you an advocate of solid heads or water cooled in a boosted methanol application, and why? Or solid or water heads anyways, in general?
It depends. The methanol, keeps the engine cool.
Right.
So you can certainly get away. Let me look at that. The reason you go to a solid head is so the cylinder head is more rigid, so it doesn't flex. So you don't kick head gaskets out, because as the power goes up, the cylinder pressures go up. So you don't. So you need to run that in some applications. The reason why we have to run a solid a lot is because the sanctioning body won't allow a billet, which is nonsense because the money's somewhat similar. But whatever, that's the rule they live in. Some of those they have. You can either run a billet block, a cast cylinder head, or you can run a cast block and a billet cylinder head. So because the blocks need to be stronger, they have to run the billet so it doesn't break the mains out of them. With these things small blocks making 3,000 horsepower, like it's insanity to me.
Oh yeah.
I think certainly you can get away with a lot more with methanol, with a procharger, turbocharger, things of that nature. Superchargers, blowers, roots, screw, all of that. Yeah, you can definitely. You don't have to have the water in it. Like a nitrous application, because they run gas, you have to have some water going through it. You've got to keep the spark plug cool. All of that, or it's going to detonate, and then they don't run. Nothing runs when it detonates. So it definitely needs it there for that application. Honestly, getting the water in the cylinder heads in a billet application is the hardest part. It's the hardest design of the cylinder head.
That's what I was going to ask.
How do you? No idea. It's horrific hard, because they all have to intertwine with each other.
Sure they do.
They can't go blind.
Right.
And drilling all those holes, and then you have to miss everything. It's very difficult. And some people don't understand. Some heads you can't, like a conventional big block Chevy head, you can't put water in it in a billet application. There's no place to put it. The port is too low. There's absolutely no place to put it.
Okay.
Explaining that to somebody, sometimes they don't want to listen, but that's, but it's true. It's so hard.
So the billet heads you offer, are most of them solid?
No, we offer them both ways. So on the small block Ford billets that we do, the small block Chevy billets that we do, we offer them with water, without. We offer them dry deck, meaning there's water in the head itself, but it's sealed off at the deck. So if it lifts the head up a little bit, no water goes in the cylinder. So we can do them any way you like. It makes no difference to us. And we'll always try and help with that. If they ask, if they need it. Typically, people buying that are pretty high-end engine builders, and they tell us how they want it.
Okay.
And that's all good with me.
Has anybody ever did any research into how pumping losses could actually help make horsepower?
I think there's all kinds of research on scavenging of the exhaust port and headers and things like that. So, yeah, I think if that'd be a good question for Warren Johnson, because he could elaborate that 1,000 times more than I can. He has done all that. And if you're fortunate enough to have him on here, ask him that.
I will.
It'd be nonsense me answering that for sure. Ask him.
But you see what I mean? That's the thing. Instead of going and trying to make up some excuse or some statement, you're telling them, hey, I don't know. Better ask him, because we don't all know everything. We know a man has to know his limitations. Clint Eastwood said that, and I kind of live by that. You got to know what you can do and what you can't do. But
you can't learn if you don't say I don't know.
That's it.
That is you need to be able to say I don't know, and we do say that. I tell people when we're doing the estimates, like I'll always tell you the 3 most important words, and that's I don't know, and we'll go find somebody who does. I'm not a carburetor expert, not by any means. I can change jets. That does not make me an expert. I can adjust the float level, but that does not make anybody an expert. I don't understand how it works, but that's what I do. We rely on people like Dale Kubik for that.
Right.
So that's why we do that.
Let's see, CFM. Isn't Dale Kubik CFM cars?
Yep. Yeah. He's a great guy, and he's explained a lot to me. I've learned a lot from him. He's extremely direct. It's great. Yeah. He's let me have it a couple of times. It's great. Like,
really?
Oh yeah, he's great in a good way though.
Yeah.
Like you're completely wrong, Matt. You're completely wrong. He'll say, just listen. And I go, yes, sir. I'll listen. And then, I'll try to gather as much of the information as he's saying, but sometimes he's talking too fast because it's so easy for him. So, but he's certainly been a blessing for us, because he does help us with things, which entail helps our customer, because he's willing to tell me this is what they need. Okay, great. So we went and made changes. We made a change to our billet small block intake manifold. A small block now, typically they run 2,500 butterflies, which, in the past you would have been like, what? That goes on a big block.
Right.
But they need the bigger butterflies so they don't go rich up high. It needs to slow the airspeed down a little bit instead of pulling on the booster so hard, is how I understand it. And then, so we had to make the manifold different to accept the larger carburetors, because there's 4,500s, and then you get to the larger ones. So, so we've made all those changes in the CAD, and basically told me to get with the times. It was great. That was great. I go, yes, sir. I'll get with the times. I want to associate myself with people like that tell me that, that you're not looking at this the right way. I want to evolve too. I want to learn.
Maybe I'll have to call him and see if he'll be on for a live chat.
He's
no, I ain't doing that. I ain't got time for that.
He's a really nice man. He's won who knows how many NHRA Pro Stock championships. Have had his carburetors on there. He works with some of the best engine builders in the country. He's just a nice man too. He's just a nice man.
Well, I think I'm going to have to make a phone call then this week. All you can do is say no or hang up.
Yeah. He'd be good on here. We just got to talk him into it. He'd be good on here.
We'll get him on there then.
He's great.
Enjoy it. How about this one? Let's see. John Salvatera. Thank you, John. Thanks, Matt, for very informative. Thanks, Tim. You're welcome, John. Appreciate the $20. That goes right in the DragBoss fund, and that's what we're using. The money that we collect here goes right back into the fund, and that's what we use to make and build these engines that we're doing and the projects that I'm featuring here. So thank you for that. I don't know much about this. I've heard a lot of talk about this. You might not know. This is old stuff from the 50s, I think, or early 60s. Who copied who on the canted valve? Maybe everyone copied Dodge on a poly engine.
Yeah, I wouldn't know that.
Yeah, me either. You know, the poly engine was a canted valve Chrysler engine that they made, but then I don't think it ever came out or went anywhere with it. You know, everybody has this thing about who started what and where, you know, and I guess it doesn't matter to me. You know,
I don't think that's what this industry is about, though.
Right.
This industry is about evolution.
Thank you.
Just refine. Yeah, I think that's silly, truthfully. I think that's completely silly.
But a lot of people are like,
that'd be like saying that the majority of that Frank Iaconio, like a lot of them used, you know, iterations of what he was doing on the engine program there for about a 6-year span. They were all just evolutions of what he was doing. You can go Greg Anderson, you can go through a bunch of them.
Sure.
But that's like saying that, well, he was the first one to do it. Well, not really, because he evolved it from something else too. I mean, I think it's just silly when people do that. And that's not what this is about. It's not, and that's what's so fun about it, is it's always moving forward. It's always moving forward, and you have to pay attention. You know.
And what does it matter who invented? I mean, who cares about that? Who made it? It doesn't make a difference who made it. How's that relative? Exactly.
Because typically it gets evolved. I think the only thing that hasn't is the Carrillo rod. If you look at that, you can look. I remember looking at some magazines from the '60s. They had an ad there for a Carrillo rod, and it looked identical to what they were making today. And I just thought to myself, well, I think that is that's an example of a Carrillo steel rod that maybe they definitely knew what they were doing there.
Here's an old Pro Stock rod, BRC, from back in the mid '70s. Somebody sent these to me. Actually, I bought them from somebody. But look at that piston with the holes in it. I've never seen anything like that, you know?
Yeah, I remember some of that stuff. Yeah.
Oh, do you?
Yeah, with the holes in it. Yeah. Yeah, that looks pretty good.
Hey,
it's got a lot of carbon on it. That looks pretty good.
I'm putting a motor together. We'll see how it works, you know? Here's another one. RW Falco. Thanks for watching the channel. I've been watching your videos. Thanks. Is there any new product line development for conventional small block 4 and LS?
Yes. So we use John at CID's LS7 casting. We have a new program for that. I think that's a real hot rod head. We try to get people to purchase that because for the little bit amount of money it is extra.
Yep.
You get a much better product than some of the other options. It's an inline head, so it's a true LS. A lot of valve area, 250 valve, 4 and 40 CFM. Ours is an oval port that we put in it because we get them raw without spark plugs and guide bores and all of that. So we get to design all that and put it where we want. We still work within the architecture that John created, and he created such an amazing casting right there. I don't think anybody's got anything close to it in an LS7. I think John's is the nicest for a cylinder head porter to work with. So we have that. We have a new trick flow head that we're doing. There's a class in the small tire deal. You have to run it. It's an inline forward head. So we're actually laser scanning that right now. We have everything finished on it. So we'll be probably running cam on that by the end of next week. So we have that also. And then we also have for the guys that are, like a 302 or whatever, 351, whatever it might be. We have a port program for the Dart Ford Pro 1 cylinder head. Originally, we did it for road course stuff in Australia, and that went really good. A longtime customer of ours. But we sell them to other applications as far as for the street and things like that when the guy doesn't want to go to the next level.
Okay.
So we do have a lot of that stuff. The LS, we still have the LS. We have the Dart LS 10 degree, and we'll have more stuff. It's like I said, it's always going to keep going.
Now you do an SC1 head. Is that John's head that you guys do? Is it your own head?
John, when you say, well, the SC1, Ford quit making them, and then Edelbrock was making them. I don't know if they're making them anymore.
Okay.
I'm not sure. The investment company bought that, so that usually goes downhill there.
Yeah.
But we do machine the SC ones. We have port programs for all of that also. We always try to do a little bit more on that. We have to actually weld on the outside of the cylinder head. We saw some areas if we welded outside the cylinder head, we could improve the intake port. So we do all of that. That's what we do. If we look at some, we always try to look at it like, what can we do that's just a little bit more work, but it's going to get the end user an advantage. Because it's racing. You always want the unfair advantage. That's the only way you can win. Everything's performance based. So that's all.
A buddy of mine, you might know his name. I don't know. His name is Bruce Weiss. Now he had a set of CHI heads that he blew up, and he sent them to you. He sent me a picture of it. But you guys actually rewelded the chambers and said we can make these better than what they were. So you rewelded them and remachined them to a different shape. I think is the way it looks.
Yeah, some of that stuff comes in, and it's just, it's all I do. So we should be able to be somewhat decent at it, I would hope.
Yeah.
But we can see inefficiencies sometimes that are easy fixes. And typically chamber upgrades come and it helps all the mid-lift numbers significantly on intake and exhaust. So there's a lot to take advantage of there. And sometimes we find as much as 30, 40 CFM in a big block, and as much as 25 or 30 in a small block. That happens quite often here. And it definitely runs better on the track and on the, they go dyno, everything's better about it. But yeah, we're always, if the customer wants an update, then we'll look at it. One thing what I always try to do, I try to give the customer an idea of what the power gains are going to be versus the money. And it's fine if they go, that's too much money for that kind of power. I get it. No problem. So let's not do it. Or they say, yeah, let's do it. But I always try to do that. I think that's being more fair to them, being more upfront and honest. We don't need to sell an update to stay in business. We would like to sell that customer a new set 3 years from now when he's ready to do a real update.
But you do a lot of work. So, say I blew up a head. You actually, it doesn't matter whose head it is. If they want to send you a set of heads to get fixed, will you do them or not? Or you stick with more?
It depends. I would like, we need to talk to the customer first before he sends it.
Yep.
Because I need to know where it's broke at. Because a lot of times on some of the stuff, it's just cheaper to buy a new casting. I mean, aluminum castings are so cheap now. So instead of spending $800 in a repair, you can spend $1,100 and getting a brand new head. Well, then, I try to tell the customer, go get the brand new head. Don't put money into this. Crazy. Let's not do that. So I'll always look at that for them too. I always look at it's real easy. It's not like it takes a lot of time. I can look at it and know. But some certain things are challenging, exhaust ports that leak are very challenging to fix. We usually try to stay away from that. It's very difficult. Okay. They're hard to weld because of the exhaust, the silt and everything that goes through them. But that's all.
You mean as far as what?
We do a lot of it though. We service a lot of things. Certainly we service all of our own heads. And we do a lot of repairs for other customers though. Like you said, we do a lot of that.
Now, when you say it's hard to fix the silt kits in the head, do you mean it incorporates itself into the aluminum itself?
Yeah, and it makes it dirty when you weld, and it's it makes it dirty, and it's hard to it's just hard to get it to stop leaking the exhaust port. It's hard to get the torch in there, things like that.
Yep.
So we definitely try to stay away from that for everybody's reason, because you'll get it to stop leaking here, then it'll go through 2 or 3 heat cycles, and it'll start leaking again.
Okay.
And that's maddening, right? So, and then the customer's pissed, so that doesn't work. So we try to stay away from that as much as possible and just do what's best for everyone in that case.
Well, especially too, like where the valve seat sits is probably what you're talking about, right? Where the seat.
Some of that.
Okay.
What you'll see in that area is the endurance guys. So the dirt racers, things like that, they'll run on 7 cylinders until it stops running. So we see that a lot. Obviously, those drivers don't own the engine typically.
Yep.
They're just drivers, or they wouldn't do that. So what we see is on there is the valve will beat the seat register right out of the cylinder head. And when you say seat register, it's where the seat sits down.
Yes.
And you press it in. Well, what happens is if that is all weld there, eventually it's going to beat that down. And then what happens is the engine loses lash. And when it loses lash, then it blows up. So we have to be careful there. We have a set in here for a dirt application just like that. And it's not fixable.
Okay.
You can make it look like it's fixed, but
Right.
so, and then you got the people that, oh, just fix it, I'm going to sell it, and I don't even want to deal with those people because
Nope.
they're awful human beings.
Buy a new
Sell that
cash
shit to
tank.
somebody else. Then we usually don't take their calls anymore. I don't need to be part of that.
And I had talked with you about this before, and the reason we're doing this is to get information to learn, like I said about 100 times, and to spread the knowledge. But hopefully the guys on here don't go calling Matt and asking a million questions. That's not what I want to do. I don't want people calling you with all kinds of crazy questions, and hopefully they respect that. That you're there to make money, to survive, and take care of your family and your employees' families. Do you have a lot of
we stay real busy here. Everybody stays busy. All the guys do. Jimmy does. Jimmy's a big part of MBE. Certainly our success he is, for sure. But Jimmy will usually weed through those people, so it's fine. And if I have time, I don't mind doing it. I don't mind. It's just this time of year when you go through November to March.
Yep.
For all of us in the industry, it's a lot, because it's your busiest time.
Yeah.
And there's deadlines, and it can get the best of you. It can get the best of you. Sometimes you just need to go home and just have silence.
That's it.
But those are good problems to have. But I don't mind if I have time, and if I can answer it, I'll try to.
Okay. Matt, do you get many calls for street strip or drag and drive canted valve heads for small block Chevy or LS? How much power could I make on 92 octane?
We do. Actually, we do a lot of that, and it's getting more and more popular. Typically have power adders on them. And it has its own challenges, but yes, we do a lot of that, and we look at it as a street strip thing. But we always look at it as endurance before we look at it as drag. The reason why you have to do that, you can't win if it's not running, if it's broke. So let's look at it as endurance-wise, because if it's running, you can still win. So we certainly look at it that way. A lot of that is using the proper spring technology, and there's the spring technology is went just so much better in the last 8 years. Like it's so much better. Things we do now we would have never even thought of doing. Running an inch 310 spring in a big block Ford in a valve that weighs 130 grams.
Yeah.
And have it live with 800 lift for 3 seasons on the lake. We have a spring that does that. But we work with Joe Hornick and a lot of that. Joe and I have been friends now. We're at 25 years. Joe and I met when we were at Joe Gibbs. Jason Line was there too. Yep. We had the three of us spent a lot of time together. Joe was running the Spintron. Jason and I knew how important that was for us to learn and be part of that and get that knowledge. And Joe enjoyed that we were, that we wanted to. So while a lot of the guys were at the lake on the weekends on Lake Norman, people like me and Jason would be in the shop. So we became, back then we were real close friends. Now we're just always looking for time. There's just never any time. He has his own deal and we have our own deal. But Joe Hornick designs a lot of the springs, and PSI makes them. He designs springs for PSI. He's an engineer for them.
Yep.
And he has taken the spring to a whole nother level. So we on these applications, I deal with him directly. So what we do is call him. We give him all the valve weights, the RPM, the application, all of this. And then he'll go and refine it from us. And then we even get to what the install height's going to be, how close from buying that spring that goes into. And we want that plus or minus like 3,000 or 4,000. It gets very particular. So we have to tell the engine builder that they need to check what actual lift is at the retainer, not what the cam card says, because there's way too many variables. Is the rocker ratio exact? Is it's just there's way too many variables there. Is the camshaft exact? All of that. So, when you don't do that, I think that's a very, very important for people to know is you can't go by what the cam card says. It's nonsense. I'll give you some examples. Spec. We did a spec head, put all the upgraded valve train in it in a 23-degree spec head for the dirt. The engine builder got it back. He checks net lift. It's 70 thousandths more than what the cam card said. problem was that spring went in 65 thousandths from coil bind. So it was going to bind and it was going to rip the head of the valve off. And then he's got oil pan failure. So then he's got a big problem. But he caught it, and then we had to put a different spring on it. It's so important that people do that. And we tell everybody, man, I'm very adamant about it because we've seen so many times. And then we can refine it so this stuff lasts. So you just have to, and that's an evolution. We should take that for granted, and that's another thing, there's assemblers and there's engine builders. And it's so important to go to an engine builder. I try to tell my customers that. I know it's always going to be challenging when they want me to build their engine over the phone, because a real engine builder doesn't want me to do that.
Right.
They want us to supply cylinder heads and manifold for their application. And there's a reason why you pay a little bit extra money to go to that engine builder. Like for me, if I was going to go build a twin turbo engine, I can't build that. I don't know what the bearing clearances need to be. I don't know what rod goes in it. I don't know any of that. I'm going to go to some guy like Anthony DeSoma or Steve Johnson, like you're going to talk to later on. I'm going to go to somebody like that and let them do it first, and then I'll put it back together, because it's so important that stuff lives. They've already went through the heartache. They know you're paying for their education, and it's so little extra. It's just ridiculous. It probably costs you $1,500 extra to go to one of the good guys, maybe $2,000. It's
That's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. If it blows up, it's 10 grand. Like, what do we do? And you don't get to use it for a year. But yeah, I just wanted to make that comment because I think that's very, very important.
So you believe the adage, you get what you pay for.
Well, you do with those people for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do get what you pay for.
Let's see, here's another one. Matt, drag racers seem to pull lessons learned from the cup teams. Have the cup teams ever taken any aspects from drag racers like Pro Stock or Comp Eliminator?
Yeah, for sure. When I was at Gibbs, GM paid, what's his name? He ran B Dragster. Oh, shoot, what's his name? He passed away out of Indy area. Shoot. Terrible, I don't remember. But yeah, we actually got cylinder head splayed valve heads from them. We had made cast intake manifold to fit that symmetrical, port and stuff like that. And we actually dynoed it for GM. We did some of that. So yeah, I think that stuff used to go on. The cup world's a different world than it was 20 years ago. It's not the same. There's not a lot of evolution going on there like it used to be by any means. You got Ford engine builders, so there's not a lot of competition. If you run a Ford, you can only buy the parts from Ford. So, you can't buy the parts from Ford. You have to get everything you have to buy your engine from Yates. So the evolution just is non-existent because they're the only one working on the program. So it's things like that. So the cup world's changed significantly. Where the cup world in 2006 was 70% of our business.
Sure.
It was a large part of business. We were doing development work for RCR. We did that for 3 years. We did development work for DEI, RCR, Evernham, Morgan McClure. They were a great customer. I love them because they raced like people did, like drag racers raced. I love them because they make changes. They weren't a large team, and they weren't afraid to do anything. And those guys have been around. They've been part of themselves for a long time. They've been together. And a couple of the guys have went off and been very, very successful. The one in the dirt stuff has done really, really good. Shoot, I went blank on that too. But anyways, yes, I think it does. I think it has in the past. I know for us, I can give you a direct example of this. Me, Jason Line, and Joe Hornick were working on this cup stuff, and we were having a lot of success, and we were learning, and we were doing all this stuff, and we talked about it together, and we really enjoyed each other. We would challenge each other. We weren't afraid to say if somebody was wrong, and well, why? And it paid off. We went to number 1 in the chassis dyno, and it took us a year, but we got there, and we were like 5th or 6th when I started there. So I think there's a group of us that we're able to do that. But so on that cup side, what happened was in the cup deal, the Spintron development was going it was going crazy. You had John Baroka I'll keep going blank on this. Shoot. Anyways, you had John Baroka, you had Joe Hornick at Gibbs, you had a bunch of them doing all this development, and they went from, in 1999, they went from 9,200 RPM, and then in 2002, 2003, they're up to 10.2. Like 100 RPM is a lot, so they went up 1,000 RPM. So what happened was we were doing development for some of the teams, so it helped immensely. So all of that valve train development went to the cup side, or went to the pro stock side. They got it first. So we worked with Kenny Koretsky, with Eddie Garnacci. Jason went to work with Greg. Jason and Joe went and worked with Greg, and you see what they did for that program.
Sure.
I mean, they made them champions for sure. Well, Greg does too, because Greg is Greg. You know, Greg's maybe the best racer of my generation, probably. But
I'm gonna call him.
But they drove it. But those two, I'd say, drove the development there to succeed. I think they deserve a lot of the credit. I think Greg would tell you that too. Greg's a pretty good guy. So what happened on that deal? We can go through it step by step. So on the cup side, we were looking, and we kept making the manifolds bigger, and it was making power. I remember I made a small change. The flow coefficient didn't change at all. All I did was drop the floor 250 thousandths and just made it larger at the opening. We picked up 25 horsepower. And then it was like, so now we know. So we were fortunate, the three of us, I think, I don't know if they'll say the same thing. I feel like they will, but when the technology went to go from 9,600 to 10.2 in cup, I already knew that the head needed to be bigger. I knew it, I could work percentages off that cup head of what we needed to do and just run numbers. Okay, so we have to do this, And then there's instant success because yes, it does trickle down. It does go back and forth. And it's a lot of fun when you adapt it to the other and it works. You're kind of like, all right, I did have it right. That's good. So we were very fortunate to do all of that for sure.
That's a great question because I never have thought about that ever. I never thought about that technology going from one to the other for the most part, other than valve trade,
Well, the people that want the knowledge follow where it's going to happen. I would think, they had a need for it in pro stock, so they're going to make friends with some of the cup guys because they know it benefits them, and like minds hang out with each other. So I think you have that, and just human nature in a way.
I think Greg Anderson would be good to have on this live chat.
Yeah, Greg's done everything. Yeah, for sure. I mean, no one's been more successful.
I told you I got to call out to Erica Enders. So hopefully she can come on and do a live chat and get her take.
Yeah, she wears them boys out, don't she?
Yeah.
She wears them boys out. Oh, my God. They hate racing against her. They have to.
Oh, yeah. There's some animosity for sure. I mean, who's out there
they're probably scared of her? I mean, she beats them every year after year after year. Even when she doesn't have the best car, which typically she does. Those guys are so great over there, but I don't know. That girl can drive. That is no doubt about it. Put her under pressure, and she just gets better.
She had 0.25 reaction time in the finals this year, or in 22. The other guy, too. It's crazy.
Yeah, and she was upset she didn't go 12, probably. Knowing her.
And what female drivers are out there? I mean, who's out there that's racing, in the big leagues, not small stuff.
I mean, you got them girls in pro stock.
Yeah.
What's his name's daughter? I think there's a fair amount. Sure. We need more. I'm always okay with that.
Hey, that's why I'm trying to get my daughters out here to learn this stuff and work on things. To try to light that fire. I don't have boys, so I'm trying to get the girls to like horsepower and get their hands dirty. My 7-year-old goes, "Ooh, Dad, that's all greasy. I don't know if I want to touch that." I said, "Don't worry about grease. You're in DBG. We don't worry about that."
That's funny.
Bill Fioretti, finally, a respected neutral engine guy that readily agrees with us Ford followers that the highly lauded and popular LS Series Chevrolet was actually inspired by a Ford Series engine. So there. Yep.
Absolutely.
You're not afraid to say it, are you? No.
Well, I think there's other things. I always found it interesting on the cup side when I was at Gibbs that a Ford engine could flow 25 CFM less and still make more power than the Chevrolet. So
Really?
when you look at the Ford engine platform compared to the Chevrolet, you see a lot of advantages to the Ford. There's a lot of advantages to the Ford. Well, the oil pan rail for scavenging is much, much better, to getting the oil off the crank. It's in a much better position. So there's free power there. The distributor up front might be something. But we did have to flow 30 more CFM to make more power. I mean, that is an absolute fact.
Really?
Yeah. So it tells you that the engine platform was better. I mean, the truth is truth. Okay. I mean, you can't, there's no denying it.
So the distributor up front, meaning that it changes the timing when it's.
Yeah. I think there's advantages to that. I think it'd be better if you asked a real engine builder, not a real engine builder. I've been around it all my life, but that does not make me an engine builder by any means. But yeah, I think there were some obvious advantages to it for sure. Yeah, especially in the oiling, as far as the oil pan, because they went to priority main oiling years ago, so they fixed that. That was always a problem on the Ford, but priority main oiling had been fixed years ago. So, and I think I remember George DeLorean was working at Dart, and I think George, and I'm gonna get this right, but I think it was Dickie Ahrens and George DeLorean got together. That's who Maskins, put his brain trust in, and they fixed all those problems with the Ford oiling system. Between those two older gentlemen had accomplished so much and seen so many things. People like Dick Ahrens. I mean, that knowledge is. I mean, you're no way you're going to learn all that. Got an engine shop for 50 years, But they fixed all those issues.
What did you think of Dick Maskin? I don't know him, but he seems like a Warren Johnson, real gruff, to the point, not a big bunch of.
I think that you're not doing justice to Warren Johnson. That's what I think. Warren Johnson is a much better man. I'll be honest. I can honestly say that. Yeah.
Okay.
Richard's not here to defend himself, so I'm not going to say anything. But I grew up there, went to high school with his daughter. I've known him, but Richard's Richard.
Never met him. I just heard stories, And then let's say it was Booth and Ahrens, right? You said Dick Ahrens, Wally Booth and Ahrens, right?
Yes, sir.
Now, someone had told me back in the day that actually those guys were running aluminum blocks in pro stock in the mid 70s. They've been there shop and saw one. I don't know if that's true or not.
Yeah, I don't know that. Maybe they did. They had the road racing stuff that, the General Motors was doing. They had some of those aluminum blocks. So maybe it's possible. But then they learned that, you get better ring seal out of the iron block. And if weight's not an issue, that I'm sure they went to the iron block. And then they learned you can go to larger bores, help make power, taking stroke out. So then everything just keeps evolving. It's not that old, you got to think about it. All this is evolving from the 50s. It's really not that long ago.
No, it isn't.
I'm looking at 3 generations. It's not very much. So, yeah, it's pretty cool.
It kind of brings this question up here, which is what we're kind of leading to right from what you just said. While the political winds are blowing in one direction, EV, electrical, I think internal combustion has many years left. But that someone is going to hot rod and Jetson mobile someday. It's who we are. And I think.
Sure. Yeah, I think so. For sure. That'll happen.
I mean, I think, and I don't know, I don't want to be political, but it just seems like, and this will lead into this question, somewhere along the line, things are trying to get pushed away and shut down on high performance and racing and one aspect of it. I don't know where it's coming from, but do you have a hard time getting parts? That seems to be a big issue now since COVID came and all this. To try to get parts seems to be like.
I think where we're fortunate is that we've had these relationships for decades. We've always paid our bills. The things that make a good customer is that you pay your bills, number one. I mean, you can be a pain in the ass, but if you pay your bills, you're probably, you'll still do work for the guy.
Right.
So we've been very blessed with that. So, Brodex has come through for us. John at CID has come through for us. You kind of had the perfect storm. The investments companies come and buy these places during COVID. So then it created this whole other thing of challenges. So there's all of that. I think they're all still fighting through that. Has it improved? It certainly got better over the last few months at some of these places. But I think these places that used to run, I think we all know who the lists are, used to run flawlessly with the older leadership. It's not as efficient as it used to be, because the investment companies drive how the business is driven, and knowledge doesn't do that. No different than your industry, where if you're a great doctor, that doesn't mean you get the job. So there's that. I don't know, that's a whole other thing we probably shouldn't get into, because we'll just bore everybody, and we'll probably piss off 20% of the people, but I don't know, who cares about them?
Well, that's what happens. I mean, these big companies come in, and they buy, like, I just found out, not that it's a big deal, but like Jegs was bought out by an investment company now. And these companies come in and buy these businesses, then they chop them up and try to make money off by selling off certain parts of them.
I don't understand all of it.
I
hope it improves. That's all. I hope it improves. I think the quality has been a large issue. Them wanting to grow these companies way too fast without putting infrastructure in first is certainly a big issue with all of that. We check parts like we never checked parts before.
Before you use them, you're saying.
We have Dave Selvin, who works for us, 67 years old. He's done everything. He built all the Popeyes offshore boat engines. He's done everything. He's worked at Penske for God knows how many years and places like that. And he's our QC guy. So we have to QC a lot of our vendors, certainly a couple of them. We have to QC their product, which is sad. We never had to before. So I see that improving, but it's just different. It's definitely different. But that's the one thing we do here. We look at it like, wait a minute, we can't let this go out like that. It's not right. It'll out and run. It'll probably be fine. But that's not what the customer paid for. They paid for our knowledge to make sure that all of that was put into it. So we do reject pieces. We do all of that. But it's our job to protect the customer. And so, do we make less money? Absolutely, we make less money. There's no doubt about it when you have to spend all that time on QC. But do we sleep at night? Yep, we sleep at night pretty good here.
And that just goes to show that's the personal service that you get when you go.
Yeah, the knowledge of knowing what to look at and things like that. I mean, this is all I know. This is all I've done all my life. I'm very fortunate with the people I've been able to work for, and the people that have taught me over the years. There's a long list that have surely made a difference in my life. People like Dick LaHaye, Jim Becker, my dad, of course. My dad taught me at a young age how to look at things, how to analyze them, how to look at a problem and adapt to it, and to fix it. That was a lot of knowledge at a very young age that I don't take for granted. I mean, I know that was important. Mm-hmm. My dad did spend a lot of time with me in the garage as a kid. Very, very fortunate there. And I got to work with Tim Richards, Dick LaHaye, Sam Giannino, got to work Frank Iaconio in 2006 with Mike Edwards, and we did really good. And Frank Iaconio he's amazing. That guy is just, I don't know. He taught me so much.
Really?
No problem. And, if I asked him a question, he had no problem answering it. He was just, I'll never forget it. I will never, ever forget it, because he definitely improved our company by me being able to talk with him for that year and a half that we worked together, and we were very successful together. It was a lot of fun. And when you're a ProStack guy, you're either an Iaconio guy, you're a Glidden guy, you're a Shepherd guy, or you're a Warren Johnson guy, right? You're probably one of the four. And I was an Iaconio guy, and then I pinched myself. I got to work with him.
Wow.
And we got to win races and stuff. And I'm going, and he's showing me respect I probably don't deserve. And I'm going, this is insane. It was very moving to this day to be able to work with him. He'll never understand. He's kind of like John Kazi, he's very soft-spoken about stuff like that. And it's never about him. But yeah, he's a pretty amazing person. And I could never thank him enough, for sure, for what he did, for here. Things that he taught me, we still do here. When we design, when we put valve placement in, it's things that he taught us. It has to be this close. You can't get any closer than here to the cylinder wall. Improving it to us and seeing other things that didn't run as good, that flowed the same amount of air, and seeing the valve placement was wrong. We still notice that stuff today. But that's the knowledge that goes into these. That's why we put the guide boards in. I don't want somebody else doing that.
Right.
I want to put him in. We want to put him in so we have, if we don't give somebody an advantage, we don't stay in business. So we have to continually work. And we have incredible people to do it. So that's what makes it really nice to come in every day. We have just such professional, knowledgeable people here. You can't do it on your own. It's impossible. It's impossible.
And that's a key to your success that you just said. You have to, it's evolving. It's evolution. You're not going to sit on your laurels and say, yep, we got this head. We can do this head, send this out. You're constantly trying to not reinvent the wheel, but make your product better.
You have to. The problem with a small business, I think one of the biggest challenges is you can't get, in your mind, you think, I'm just going to get to this point and I'm just going to do that. And we're just going to stay like that and do that much and grow here and everything like that. But that's not the works for any small business. It has to keep growing. And, some of the way the tax laws work and things like that, you have to keep growing. They force you to keep growing. And that does make it challenging. Sometimes I would like it smaller for sure, but it doesn't allow that at times. You have to keep moving forward. And that means equipment, people, knowledge, all of that. But in some respect, that's the joy of it, to be able to have the better machinery and the better people to make those parts that can take your ideas, and finish them, and complete them. That's pretty cool to have. I will tell you, that makes it really nice to come in every day and come in here on a Saturday or a Sunday and do a little bit of work.
Sure.
It's those things I don't take for granted. I do pinch myself sometimes for sure, to be able to work with some of these people. One of our machinists was the head machine at a Ganassi. He chooses to work here. He's had other job offers. We're very fortunate. He chooses to work here. We have, Joey's incredible. Joey came from Yates. I mean, he's an incredible CAD CAM guy. We're just very fortunate to have all these people. And they all work well together. It's everybody who works here, I would gladly go out to dinner with. I enjoy them. They're just nice, honest, hardworking people. And all of them get along, and it's kind of nice. We have a nice little atmosphere here, I think. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. Just people doing their thing.
And I think that's important. And I bet you show your employees recognition. You give them gratitude. That's important to someone that works for another person, to know that Matt cares for me. Not that I'm just number 25 on my employee number, but my name's Jimmy. That's what I do. That's important.
We've had people who've worked here a lot of years. Some of these, one's like 16 years. Got
Wow.
one, then we got some 12s, some 14s, and that's not real common anymore. And I hope it stays that. Knock on wood. I hope we don't. I don't want turnover. So we're just very, very, very fortunate that they choose to work here with us. Work to work here, I should say.
It's nice. Thank you for saying that. I know they appreciate that, because they'll probably see this and say, "Hey, Matt was on YouTube. Let's see what he said about it."
I don't know. They're probably not watching me. I think they're probably out doing something else. They're probably having a good time doing this. But
my thought process is something like an enclosed cam tunnel. That's why I like this stuff. That gets my brain thinking of different avenues.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's great.
I just saw a guy, you probably don't know him. His name is Brent Likens. He's an engine builder, does a lot of Ford stuff, FE stuff, the old Ford stuff. Mm-hmm. And he was doing a video on a cam tunnel thing he designed to go inside it to shroud the cam, to protect it from the windage aspect. Haven't seen much on it. I've never heard that before.
Well, I think I'm going to guess that he's trying to keep the oil from going down on the crankshaft, and
yep.
keeping stuff off of there. Yeah, those are freebies, right? If you do a little bit of work, that's a freebie. Yeah, and that's how all the NHRA Pro Stock stuff has been for many years. The Cup stuff has been like that for a long time now. I'd say every comp eliminator car in the country has been like that for a long time, for sure.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, comp eliminator. I miss comp eliminator. I wish it had. It's going to grow now with that Division 4 deal. They have a whole Division 4 deal they're doing. And there's a lot of money in that. It's going to pay more, as much as Pro Stock's going to pay. So everybody should look into that. That's going to be really cool for comp eliminator.
Which brings up the top of the windage right there. You're talking about windage. I mean, there's horsepower there. especially from NASCAR, right? You said the Ford.
For all of it, I think there's power in all of it. I mean, I think even OEMs take advantage of it too anymore.
Yeah.
Say they do. But I got to wind things down.
I understand completely. I just put this one up here. Face blue, smiling hand, pink waving. Yeah, that's me too.
All right. Yeah, I just got to wind things down. Just getting tired. I apologize.
No, you don't have to. You don't have to. We've been talking for 1 hour and 34 minutes, which I thought was only going to be a half hour, Matt. Sorry.
That's great. It felt like it was 10 minutes. That was awesome. I had a great time. I can't thank you enough, Tim. This is, this is really nice. I appreciate it. That you even thinking of me in this light is very, very nice. And I really appreciate that.
No, I'm the one that's honored that you would come and be on my YouTube channel, Matt. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Well, everybody that's watching, thanks for watching. Appreciate it. If Brianna and Hannah are watching, I love you.
All right, guys. And I said that to my family in the beginning. They're all, I know they're waiting for me now. I said, it'll probably be about 1 hour.
Oh, and my mom. My mom might be watching. Hey, Mom. Love you too.
Hi, Mrs. Bieneman. And we'll talk. I'm going to shut this off. We'll end it here, and we'll talk for a minute, and then we're gone, guys. So stay tuned to DBG. I appreciate everybody here, as does Matt. And let's keep going. Take it easy and stay tuned.
Thank you, everyone.